What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of All Around Your hosts, Cardell Dudley and George Mason. George Mason. They improved to 12-1 on the season, tying the school record for the most wins in the non-conference portion of the season, dating back to, I believe, the 84-85 team, as they hold on to the P-Pen 83-79. Fatt Hill led George Mason with 18 points and 4 rebounds. Nick Ellington added 16 points and 11 rebounds, and Kory Mincey added 16 points. For Penn, they were led by Michael Zanoni with 23 points and 4 assists. Cam Thrower contributed 14 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists. And AJ Levine added 11 points and 5 assists. Yes, this was a hard fought game, to say the least. This was a game that, you know, feature a lot of runs from both teams, and I'm pretty sure if you talk to both coaches, some spurts of undesirable play on both ends. Let's just leave it at that, man. But for the most part, it was a hard fought, entertaining, competitive game. So you can't knock it there. In the first half, Mason looked like they were ready to blow the game over right away. Obviously being the heavy favorites, being at home, being 11-1. They jumped out to a 6-0 lead. It was clicking. Defense was making things tough on Penn, and like I said, it looked like they was about to run away with things. And then naturally, like every team, they go on. Penn went on a run. They cut the lead to 3. On a run which was led by Michael Zanoni, who had 7 points of 3 or 4 shooting from the field. He didn't stop in the first half. He got it going. Then Messiah Troutman, got a steal and lay-in. They stopped the bleeding, which put George Mason up 35-26. At that point, George Mason was 7 of 24 from the field. And they hadn't even hit a 3 yet. So that's what I mean by how they started off hot. Offensively, they were making shots. They was making shots from everywhere but 3-point range. But when you that hot from the field, why settle for threes, man? Get in, get closer, because they was knocking them down, runners, mid-range jumpers, inside play. They had it clicking. And it was a back and forth affair to close out the first half, and then Michael Zanoni on a hell of a call from Dumfries on a hell of a call. He hit a 3-pointer right before the buzzer sounded to cut the George Mason lead to 2. As they went into the half, George Mason was leading 42-40. At the half, Jari Long had 9 points and 3 assists at the half. Again, Nick Ellington 8 points, 4 rebounds, and Fatt Hill with 6 points. Zanoni. In the first half, he was torching earth. He had 18 points on 7 of 10 shooting from the field, 4 of 7 from deep. When I say he had it going, I mean he had it going. Like George Mason had to give him special attention, because whenever he saw daylight, it was automatic. And I got to give Troutman a lot of credit when they really let him kind of just key in on him. He kind of slowed him down as the game went along, but the damage was done in the first half where he could keep them close. And Fran McCaffrey, my apologies, I don't know why I said Dumfries, but Fran McCaffrey, that was a beautiful play he drew up there in the half, man, to get Zanoni open so that he could get that 3 to close it within 2. And then at the end of the first half, George Mason led by 2, but they hadn't hit a 3-pointer all half. They were 0 for 8, and on top of that, they didn't hit. They were off from the free throw line, and then that's gonna be a big theme in this game. They were 4 for 9 in the first half. George Mason was, and Penn was 1 for 4. But Mason made up for with, the bench points. They had 14 bench points to Penn 6, and then they scored a lot in the paint. Like I said, they was getting to the cup. Penn was struggling to keep them in front of them, and they scored 34 points in the paint. And Penn, in comparison, only had 22. And you also got to give. It wasn't just Jahari Long; it was a group effort. Kory Mincey was getting in there. Alan Spock, Fatt Hill, Ellington, especially 8 points and four rebounds. They was eating inside, so in the paint. So Zanoni with his explosive first half kept them in the game. And Garrett Hart contributed 8 points and 3 rebounds, and Cam Thor had 8 points in the first half as well. But Penn most of their damage was done by Zanoni. Then the second half began, and Penn jumped out on George Mason something serious. They started the half on a 10-4 run to take the lead. And during that run, AJ Levine and Cam Thor had combined for 9 points during that run to get them the lead. And from that point on, it was just a back and forth affair between both teams. And that's what I mean by a guy exciting and super competitive. Look, Zanoni had an explosive, crazy first half. George Mason keyed in on him. He only scored 5 points in the second half, which was good. He was 2 of 4. He was still efficient, but they kept him in check. But Levine woke up, 11 points, 5 of 10 in the second half. Cam Thor added 6. TJ Powell had 8 points, two rebounds. Gerhard added a bucket, and then it was by committee that they were able to stay in it. But George Mason, as much as what Penn did to stay in it, George Mason hurt themselves a lot. Even though they shot well from the field overall in the second half, they shot 51%. Fatt Hill really got it going. He had 12 points, 4-4. In the second half alone, Kory Mincey, 9 points, 4-10. Nick Ellington continued his stellar play, had 8 points and 7 rebounds. Manuel Kanga, grown man as a freshman, he had 4 points and 6 rebounds. He was cleaning the glass tonight. I'm gonna speak more on him later on. Even though they were able to, get baskets, the free throw line killed them, man. In the second half, they could have easily put this game away a lot earlier than they did, and wouldn't have been this close. But in the second half, they were 10 of 19 from the free throw line, and in the second half, and then again, their 3-point shooting woes just continued. They were 1 for 7, and that's what allowed Penn to stay in the game, man. And then on top of that, Penn in the second half, by comparison, they shot 38% from deep, and they were 6 of 16 from 3-point range, and then free throws, they were 7 of 11. So with their 3-point shooting, they were able to maintain and stay in the game. And again, George Mason couldn't build a cushion because they wouldn't make free throws. And that can't happen. Those are the things that cost you games. And you got to think about it. Penn get a couple extra possessions. They, because they got all rebounder in this game, which I'm gonna touch on in a little bit. Overall, in the second half, they won George Mason won a rebound battle 24-16, and got 7 second chance points. Well, they won by 4, and Penn only had 4 second chance points on their side. So that's 3 points differential. You see what I'm saying? And that's how close the game was. It was really George Mason won by the margins. You know what I'm saying? Even with them hurting themselves by not making free throws that they're fully capable of making. This is an outlier as far as their poor free throw shooting tonight. That was just unusual. I'm sure the coach is going to get on the players and try to definitely look to get that cleaned up. But with that being said, the bench, man, George Mason bench 24 points to Penn 7 in the second half. They were huge. And again, points in the paint. Penn struggled to keep George Mason guards in front of them all game, and then whenever the guards missed, their bigs cleaned up, and that was it. And that's how they were able to win and pull it off. And then they outscored Penn 20-10 in the paint, and that's your ball game. They look, man, George Mason found a way to win. That's the most important thing. They found a way to win. Good teams found a way to win. That's why they're 12-1 right now, sitting pretty as they begin conference play. But they got some things they got to clean up, man. Kory Mincey, 16.6 of 15 from the field, but 1 of 8 from deep, 1 assist, 1 rebound. You got to be better across the board. Nick Ellington, I felt like was their player of the game. I know Fatt Hill hit some big shots, 18 points, 7 to 8, 4 rebounds. But I feel like Nick Ellington was the one that carried them throughout the night with 16 points or 7 to 10 shooting, and 11 rebounds. He was just a man. He was a grown man in there. He was a technician on the block. He was finishing, and he was one of the few players that hit free throws. He 2 or 3. He was 2 or 3. Jahari Long was solid, 12 points after the fast start into the game, 12 points, 5 assists. Pretty sure it's a couple turnovers he would have loved back. And they just found a way, man. Kanga, I said I was going to talk about him, young fella, 10 rebounds, 4 points, 10 rebounds. When George Mason late in the second half went on a run where they got just enough of a cushion to hold on to win the game, Kanga was responsible for that. He scored a couple times. His 4 points came in that run late in the second half, and he grabbed every board that was missed. Like, he was just a grown man. I mean, he 2-3 pin bigs around him, and he just going up, grabbing the ball, knocking them out the way, and giving the Patriots extra possessions where they were able to get a rhythm overall and score and build up a big enough cushion where they can hold on and win the game, man. Without his impact doing the dirty work, I'm not sure they win this game. Even with Ellington doing what he was doing, I'm not sure, because it took all of it just to win by 4, man. And you got to credit that young fella. When he gets in the game, he goes hard. He doesn't mind doing the dirty work. He's a grown man. And when the game really slows down for him and he becomes more polished with what he already brings naturally to the table, he's going to be a monster. He's easily going to be a double-double machine for the Patriots in the future. Easily. I'm eager to see what he does, conference play, where, things are a little bit more intense because the big goals are right there, winning the conference championship, trying to get to the tournament, you know what I'm saying, and try to go on the run. Everything is written right then, so it gets more real. So I'm eager to see what he does, man. But man, Mason shot very well from the field overall for the game. 56% from the field, but again, 3-point shooting woes. They shot 6% from deep, 1 for 15. And that was second half 3 from Kory Mincey. I believe the corner 3. I believe Jahari Long drove. I could be wrong. One of the guards drove. I believe it was Long drove in the paint and found him for the corner 3. And then their free throw shooting, they were 14 to 28, 50%. They're a far better shooting team than what they showed tonight. If they just shot their average, which I believe is it's the upper 70s, like 78% or something like that. If they do that, they win this game by 10 plus, just off that, without even hitting any more threes. Just that, they win by 10 plus. So, they out rebounded Penn 41-29 overall. Bench points 38. Like I said, Fatt Hill and Nick Ellington, they had a lot to do with that. That's the reason why they dominated. Inside and points and paint. That's the one. That's the one I'm sure McCaffrey is not going to be pleased with. They were dominating inside. George Mason won that 54-32 points in the paint, and that's what won them the game, man. So, good win. Good win from George Mason, tying the record. I mean, since that staff has gotten there, all they've done is win. That's all they've done is win, and you can't argue with results. I'm the type of guy I don't really go for a lot of opinions. Anybody can give an opinion, but you can't argue results. And the results is Skin and that staff. They get it done. In this climate of college basketball, basically having to retool your roster every year. And keep in mind, they're 12-1, and they played damn near all these games without their preseason all-conference point guard, Brandon, Brandon O'Connell. So, when he get back, that's just another weapon that most teams, I'm pretty sure have forgotten about. They might be surprised, and with their winning, it allowed him time to really fully heal, which I'm sure he's going to bounce back for conference play and be looking to come with a vengeance. And he's going to be fresh, and he's going to be hungry, eager to prove, because he hasn't had a chance to be on the floor and go to war with these guys like he wanted to, man. So, things are looking up, for George Mason, man, as they sit at the top of the A-10 standings, man. That staff and the players, they deserve a lot of credit, man. But George Mason, 12-1, they would hit the road to Philadelphia to face 4-9 LaSalle to kick off A-10 conference play, man. So, be on the lookout. I'm going to have more of these coming, more episodes all around, covering not just Mason, but other college games, as well as a number of other things. And, the basketball world through my travels and media coverage and scouting. So I appreciate you guys for joining me. And, congrats to George Mason, man, on a record-setting day. Talk to you guys later.